So, as we approach Michamocha, the song our ancestors sang after crossing through the Red Sea to freedom, and we sing it every Shabbat, we sing it throughout the week in the daily prayer service, we sing it throughout our lives, I think, as a way of reminding us that when we march toward freedom, toward equality, when we struggle in our own lives, our ancestors are marching with us, that we're not alone, and that they gave us a song that we can keep singing. And just as they are with us, so too we are with them. We are on some level continuing that march out of Egypt through the Red Sea to freedom. On some level, we are still marching out of Egypt and out of the Red Sea because the march isn't finished yet. And what our ancestors began with the Exodus is work, I think, that is still left incomplete, that is still broken, work that we have the chance to strive to complete in our own time. And it seems to me that this dovetails very much with the fact that we are approaching on the 12th of Tammuz, Monday night and Tuesday, the Yahrtzeits of Chaney, Goodman and Schwerner, a story that is both an American tragedy and a Jewish tragedy. And the fact that it happens to come so close to 4th of July this year on the Hebrew calendar, their deaths being June 21st on the American calendar, I think is very poignant and has something very powerful to show us, again, as we return, as we do each Shabbat, and as 4th of July, and as an occasion like our Yahrtzeit gives us the chance to do, as we return to the values that they lived for and died for, as we return to our deepest values, and as we turn to those values so that they may guide us in the challenges and the struggles ahead in our own lives and in our own world. So, briefly, a bit of the background of the story, as told particularly well in this article from PBS. On June 21st, 1964, 3 young men disappeared near the town of Philadelphia, Mississippi. Mickey Schwerner and James Chaney worked for the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, in nearby Meridian. Andrew Goodman was one of the hundreds of college students from across the country who volunteered to work on voter registration, education, and civil rights as part of the 1964 Mississippi Summer Project, or Freedom Summer. Ku Klux Klan membership in Mississippi was soaring in 1964, with membership reaching more than 10,000. Over the course of the summer of 1964, members of the Klan burned 20 black Mississippi churches. Chaney, Goodman, and Schwerner's station wagon was stopped, and police arrested all 3. Sheriff's Deputy Cecil Price escorted them to jail. Price then contacted Edgar Ray Killen, one of the leaders of the local Ku Klux Klan. Killen directed Klan members to gather. When 2 cars were filled with Klansmen, Price released the civil rights workers from jail. The Klansmen caught up with the 3 civil rights workers on the highway and shot Chaney, Schwerner, and Goodman. The killers loaded their bodies into the civil rights workers' station wagon and drove them to the old Jolly farm, where they used a bulldozer to bury the bodies in the earthen dam. The case drew national attention in part because Schwerner and Goodman were both white Northerners. Mickey Schwerner's wife, Rita, who was also a civil rights worker, tried to convert that attention to the overlooked victims of racial violence. She said, and pardon the antiquated language, "The slaying of a Negro in Mississippi is not news. It is only because my husband and Andrew Goodman were white that the national alarm has been sounded," she told reporters. So we come to this story that, again, is both an American tragedy and a Jewish tragedy. Chaney was black, Goodman and Schwerner were white, they were also Jewish. And as we know, the Ku Klux Klan has directed its hatred against both African Americans and Jews, as it is, of course, part of the logic, if you want to call it that, the sick and indeed evil logic of bigotry, that once the hatred of one group because they are different may begin with one group, but it never ends with one group. It only begins with one group until it extends outward to other groups that are different, and indeed to all such groups. And what we see in this story, I think, is that Chaney, Goodman, and Schwerner died striving to fulfill the fundamental precept that is so deep in Jewish tradition and indeed in Abrahamic tradition, that all of us are created in the image of God, B'Tselem Elohim, which has so many layers of meaning, that all of us are created with infinite dignity, with infinite worth on the level of the divine itself, and that all of us possess that equally. As the Talmud says, interpreting why all of humanity was created from one original human being, it is so that none may say, my ancestors are greater than yours. They died for this principle. Goodman and Schwerner, in particular, as Jews, died striving to fulfill the great mitzvah repeated more often than any other in the Torah in varying phrasings. Do not oppress the stranger. One law, that is to say an equal law, shall you have for stranger and native born. Love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. In English, we might call them martyrs, but in English, that word inevitably has sort of a Christian cast to it. I think what we would say in Judaism is that they died al Kiddush Hashem. They died sanctifying the divine name. Goodman and Schwerner died as Jews, as Chaney died being black, all of them targeted, and they died striving to fulfill the values that are deep, deep at the heart of Jewish living, of Jewish ethics. And so as we contemplate what they died for, we might perhaps resolve that what they died for, we may live for. We may strive to fulfill. That the values that were so deep in their work that was left incomplete, tragically, we may live for these values. As they died for the mitzvah, love the stranger, may we live by the mitzvah, love the stranger. As they died for the principle that we are all created in the image of God, may we live by the principle that we are all created in the image of God. And may we strive to continue their work, to complete their work, and in that sense, to sustain their presence among us, and ultimately to continue our ancestors' march that many steps forward to complete the Exodus itself. And again, as we are on the 4th of July, it gives us the opportunity to say that when we do that, we are not only fulfilling Jewish values, but we are also fulfilling the best of what America can be. We are fulfilling the best aspirations of the kind of values that we can realize here in this land and that we must realize here in this land. So I'd like us to turn together now to Dr. King's words after their bodies were found, to the words of Rabbi Joachim Prinz, then the president of the American Jewish Congress, speaking at the March on Washington just before Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. The way that he channels Jewish values and Jewish history to the modern American moment is simply extraordinary and simply beyond. His words are truly beyond words. And then we have one more moment up ahead that will transition us into Mi Chamocha. Again, I want to acknowledge in these readings the antiquated language we find, such as the Negro and man instead of the human being. So I'd like to invite first Jen Pearl to read for us what Dr. King said after the bodies of Chaney, Goodman, and Schwerner were found on page 4 in your handouts.
And as I stand here tonight, thinking about the discovery of these 3 young men, I think about the fact that it is urgent and it is important for the federal government through the FBI to use all of its resources to discover who killed these men. They know how, they have the machinery, and it's my faith that somehow they will discover who committed that dastardly act. But tonight, I'm concerned about the deeper question. It's a haunting, poignant question. Question facing everybody under the sound of my voice tonight and every person who lives in this nation. It is not so much who killed these young men, but what killed them. And when we move from the who to the what, in a strange sense, their death involves those of us who have been negligent about trying to register to vote and participated in that act. Those men who have been silent when they should have been speaking participated in those who have allowed a system of segregation to thrive and grow and develop.
Thank you, Jen. Yasher Koach. I think many of us are feeling in these times that sense of responsibility. And I would note, as we feel that sense, that when Dr. King points us to how we can all have that sense of responsibility, but he also points us to the difference between silence and speaking, I think that we can connect those two things together, and we can say that when we speak about what has happened in that time and indeed in our time, when we speak and we are not silent, when we acknowledge what has taken place and we do not whitewash and we are not apathetic, that itself is an action. And as the saying goes, religion should afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. That is to say that it's important to me that everyone feels that in this acknowledgement, in speaking and not being silent, that is itself a very deep action. And I want everyone to have that feeling that we are doing something when we do this together, that we are not doing nothing in the face of challenging times. Surely speaking and not being silent may not be the end of the story, but it is a very powerful beginning of the story. And everyone in this room deserves to feel that all of us in this acknowledgement, in this speaking and not being silent, that we are all beginning the journey of what we can do together, and everyone deserves to find comfort and reassurance in that knowledge. I will now invite forward the Caron family, Elizabeth, Libby, Maya, and Kai, to read for us this speech by Rabbi Joachim Prinz.
I speak to you as an American Jew. As Americans, we share the profound concern of millions of people about the shame and disgrace of inequality and injustice, which make a mockery of the great American idea. As Jews, we bring to this great demonstration, in which thousands of us proudly participate, a twofold experience: one of the Spirit and one of our history. In the realm of the Spirit, our fathers taught us thousands of years ago that when God created man, he created him as everybody's neighbor. Neighbor is not a geographic term, it is a moral concept. It means our collective responsibility for the preservation of man's dignity and integrity.
From our Jewish historic experience of 3,500 years, we say, our ancient history began with slavery and the yearning for freedom. During the Middle Ages, my people lived for thousands of years in the ghettos of Europe. Our modern history begins with the proclamation of emancipation.
It is for these reasons that it is not merely sympathy and compassion for the Black people of America that motivates us. It is above all and beyond all such sympathies and emotions a sense of complete identification and solidarity born of our own painful historic experience.
When I was the rabbi of Jewish community in Berlin under the Hitler regime, I learned many things. The most important thing that I learned under those tragic circumstances was and hatred are not the most urgent problem. The most urgent problem, the most disgraceful, the most shameful, and the most tragic problem is silence. A great people which had created as great civilization had become a nation of silent onlookers. They remained silent in the face of hate, in the face of brutality, and in the face of mass murder.
America must not become a nation of onlookers. America must not remain silent. Not merely Black America, but all of America. It must speak up and act, from the president down to the humblest of us, and not for the sake of the Negro, not for the sake of the Black community, but for the sake of the image, the idea, and the aspiration of America itself.
Our children, yours and mine, in every school across the land, Each morning pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands. They, the children, speak fervently and innocently of this land as the land of liberty and justice for all.
The time, I believe, has come to work together, for it is not enough to hope together, and it is not enough to pray together. To work together that this children's oath, pronounced every morning from Maine to California, from north to south, may become a glorious, unshakable reality in a morally renewed and united America.
Thank you, Caron family. Yasher Karach. Thank you so much. Thank you.